Section 10 of Shadowlands, September 1919. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Read by Lindsay Ann Cameron. Shadowland, September 1919 by Various. Section 10, Sketching from Nature. There is no hard and fast rule or rules on sketching from nature. Every artist has his own method, and no two methods are alike. Every pupil that comes out of art school starts sketching as he was taught, but soon he changes his method to a better one, or at least to one that better suits his temperament and style. In giving my methods, I do not pretend that they are better than anybody else's. I simply assert that this method is best for me. Take it for what it's worth. First, we all must draw a line of demarcation between sketching from nature and painting finished pictures. Thumb box sketches were originally small sketches made in a very short time, say an hour, and were used as mere notes or samples or impressions from which larger paintings were made in the studio later on. Later, some of the thumb box exhibitions at the Salmagundi Club and elsewhere, the artists all seemed to think thumb box sketches were elaborately finished small pictures. Some of these pictures have apparently been made in the studio and have been gone over and retouched time and again. In sketching from nature, the first thing to do is to pick your subject, which must be very simple. It may be a cloud, a tree, a road, a fence, a house, or anything, but it should be practically only one thing. You will have all you want to do to get one thing done rightly, because, as everyone knows, the light and atmospheric conditions are much different at 3:30 from what they were at 3. A few minutes makes a lot of difference. If it is a cloud effect we are painting, we all know that perceptible changes are taking place every few seconds. The same may be said of everything else we paint, except that the changes are not so perceptible. Not only is the sun moving constantly, thus changing the highlights and shadows on the object to be painted, but the atmospheric conditions are also changing. Having selected your subject, the next thing to be considered is the composition. Shall the tree be placed to the left or to the right? And shall the top of the tree end at the top of the canvas, or shall the upper half be omitted? Shall the horizon line be above the center of the canvas or below? Of course, it should never be in the center. Shall we include that stump in the foreground, or shall we draw an imaginary line just above it, which is to form the bottom of our picture? Shall we include that small bush on the right and that post on the left? Or should we make our picture a little smaller or a little larger? Having definitely settled just what part of the landscape and sky we are to include in our picture, we begin by sketching in the bare outlines of the thing we are to paint. This can be done with a pencil or a bit of charcoal. Having drawn accurately, yet roughly, the outlines of our sketch, we now start the painting. Presumably we have our paints all set on the palette together with a little can of medium. I place zinc white in the center, light chrome yellow next to the left, and yellow ochre next. To the right of the white, I place Harrison red, next alizarin crimson, and lastly permanent or ultramarine blue. For my medium, I use 1 part turpentine, 1 part linseed oil, and 1 part copal varnish. I prefer this mixture because it dries quickly, obviates a varnishing later, and prevents the colors from sinking in and looking dead. I start my sketch by using plenty of medium and very little color. In other words, a mere wash. The first painting is merely to get my values, and I generally use only crimson and blue, with sometimes a little white. I paint my whole sketch thus, sky and all, being very careful to get the values as accurately as I can. When this is done, I stand off and study the monochrome for inaccuracies. If there is any doubt, I dim my vision by almost closing my eyes and peeking through my eyelashes. In gazing at the landscape thusly, I shut out all color and see simply a picture in grays. After perfecting my purple wash to my satisfaction, I am prepared to start the real picture. Experience has taught me that if this underpainting is carefully done, my final picture will meet with my approval, and if it is not, my sketch will be a failure. There is no such thing as let well enough alone in making this underpainting. The best possible is the only thing to do. This underpainting in purple may have taken me half an hour or more on an 8x10 canvas, or it may have taken even longer if I had trouble with my values. I am now ready for the final painting itself. I mix up a good size mass of paint with a stiff, flexible bristle brush. I scoop up a quantity of the mixture and lay it on. By this time, the underpainting has become so tacky that it will not mix with the final painting. I do not rub it on the canvas or paint it, but I lay it on. I sometimes begin with the trunk of the tree or with the house or whatever the main object is to be, and I sometimes begin with the middle distance. Some painters prefer to begin with the part of the picture which shows the highest note or brightest light, and second, with the part of the picture that shows the deepest shadow. Thus, having obtained these two values, they know that all others must bear a proper relation to these two. In other words, they begin at both ends of the spectrum, and after having gone through various gradations of color value, they meet somewhere in the center. Other artists prefer to begin with the highest point of light, and from that, work down step by step to the darkest shadow. The only trouble with this method is to tell how large the steps should be. If the gradations are too severe, the shadows will be black, which, of course, should not be. Nothing is black in nature. There is color in every shadow. And if we should begin with the darkest shadow and go step by step up to the highest point of light, if by chance our steps are too large, we end in pure white, which is again wrong because there is no pure white in nature. And so, our best plan seems to be to place a little jab of paint of the right value on the point of the highest light and a little jab of paint over the darkest shadow. Then we know that all other values must be somewhere between these two. After having laid on the paint generously on every part of your canvas so that the underpainting is completely covered, the picture should be almost complete. In lying on the masses of thick paint over the underpainting, there is no harm at all if some of the edges of the underpainting show through. If it does, so much the better. Please note that I use the expression laying on. This is important. The moment you try to paint, that is, rub your brush back and forth as they do when they paint the side of a house or barn, then you begin to get a muddiness or grayness to your picture, which is fatal. Your picture must look fresh and brilliant. If you mix your colors too much, you will lose this brilliancy and freshness entirely. Every object you look at, particularly the sky, is alive with variegated colors. Your canvas must be very much the same. If you mix 3 primary colors together, you are bound to get gray, which we call mud. Therefore, it is well to keep your palette clean and to lay on your colors pure. If you make a mistake in laying on your final colors, don't lay on some more in an effort to correct the error, But with your palette knife, remove the objectionable color and try it again. When your sketch is done, take a walk for a few minutes. Then come back and look at your picture from a distance. If it carries well, you have had a successful day. If it does not, the probabilities are that you have made some vital error in your values. The Painter. End of section 10, Sketching by Nature.